Tell your friends. Tell your friends about Hooks and Ladders, but also about songstudio.ca. You can get all kinds of information about songwriting, tips, and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, like, follow, and subscribe. That's what we need. That's what you need. Hey, welcome to another episode of Hooks and Ladders. My name is Blair Packham.
My name is Allister Bradley.
And we have a special guest with us today, the fantastic, the wonderful, the kind, the creative, the funny. I think she's fantastic. She's been with us at the workshop in Toronto before, and she's joining us again in the future for sure. This is Andrea Wasse. Hey, Andrea.
Hey, guys. How are you doing?
Apparently, I'm talkative. That's how I'm doing.
Yes.
That was a wonderful introduction. Thank you so much for that, and vice versa.
It didn't really include your like any description of what you do. You're a fantastic songwriter who moved to Los Angeles many years ago, and has been writing songs ever since professionally. So that's what we want to actually talk about. We want to talk about, when do you know as a songwriter, or when do you know why move? Why move at all? And when do you know when it's the time? How did you know, as a songwriter, to pursue songwriting? Is it important to be in a center of songwriting? That kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, for me, because I started out, I had a pop rock band that I started when I was, 15, 16. And that was a band called The Weeknd, the OG with the E in it. But we were lucky enough to get a development publishing deal with EMI Canada, EMI Publishing, when I was about 19, I want to say. So it's been a fair amount of time with them, now Sony. But as far as the songwriting thing went, I signed as a band, and my manager kind of put it forward, well, if you do these other things, these writing sessions, like this Canadian Idol camp, all this, you can get love for your band to continue going on the road, right? So I kind of thought it was well, I kind of don't want to do these dorky. I felt like they're really dorky. I'm these dorky songwriting sessions, and but if I do them, then my band can get $4K to go out on the road, and so I kind of looked at it that way. And then lo and behold, I loved it. I got to work with really cool people like Randy Bachman and Christopher Ward and Simon Wilcox and all these amazing people. And it was just really neat, because before I'd always just written songs either in my bedroom or with my bands, but it was always most often I would start small in my bedroom with these lyrics and a melody, and then show it to my band, and it started there. And so the whole creative collaboration was kind of introduced into my life. And then through them, they started suggesting, okay, well, you've got to do some LA writing trips. And I was terrified, growing up in London, Ontario. It's a small town. And then spending some time in Toronto, but then going to Los Angeles. It was a little intimidating. And I had some sessions with Rick Knowles. I don't know if you know him.
I don't know.
He wrote Heaven is a Place on Earth, that Belinda Carlisle song.
Sure. And
he worked with Stevie Nicks. So he was telling me about Stevie having sat in the chair that I was in. I was so intimidated. And I think he's done some work with Lana Del Rey recently. But anyway, so I started coming here and doing that. And then I started working with this guy, Dave. And so my relationship with EMI Publishing, of course, it reached down to the Los Angeles office. And so they started saying, hey, well, you've had a few songs in television and movies. Here, maybe here's a script and here's someone to write with. And so I started getting more film and TV syncs. And then my publisher, it was Barb Seaton.
Yeah.
At EMI, she suggested, well, maybe you go down there and make it a little bit more permanent. And so I did, and it was scary. And I definitely kind of got lost in it because again, coming from London, Ontario to LA, it's you can buy alcohol in every corner and there are so many cool, fancy people to meet. And I kind of got lost in it because I went from being a medium-sized fish in a small pond to just, nobody knew who I was. And it was, it was a little, I got lost in the party scene for a little bit, to be honest. But like, as far as like knowing that was the right time, like I had the support from my publishers, and I felt like with my band and with Canada, like I'd done all that I could do there. And I felt like it was time for me to go out further into the world, and having people already to write with down here, it was definitely a help for sure. But I definitely feel very lucky. I feel like it was a very fortunate, I won the lottery kind of thing, because, it landed in the right, with everything, there's an element of luck, right?
Right. Well, and what you're describing too is sort of being pushed into it. Not that you were terribly unwilling, but just sort of circumstances saying to you, "Hey, maybe you should do this now," or either circumstances or people literally, like Barb, saying, you should consider, being there for real. Like permanently.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah.
But it must have been so intimidating, as you say, walking into rooms with those people. But I would think even just being in the city, finding a place to live, all those things. Did you have help from your publisher?
I did. But there were certain things that I didn't, because I was 26 or 27. I think I was 26 when I moved here. And I was still very much a child, like very sheltered. And all of a sudden it was like, okay, here you go. And I didn't get all my visa stuff in order. So I actually got stopped in Detroit once. They're like, you seem to be spending a lot of time down there. I'm like, I'm just going for fun. So I had to stay in Canada and deal with that at one point in a cold winter. So I didn't really like put everything in place. I've learned to be more responsible as an adult, but back then I definitely was not.
It's funny, when you talk to somebody in their 20s and they're like, well, I'm an adult, I remember you saying that to my parents, like I'm a grown up and so forth, but I didn't behave like one till I was at least 30,
No,
so
yeah.
It is funny. Now, all those daunting things, finding an apartment and so forth. Did you find the writers different in LA? Aside from the experience aspect.
Well, I mean, one thing okay, so I don't know what your experience is not moving to LA, but writing in LA. Like here, it's everyone flakes on you, and that's the funny thing. Like I'll have friends come to town. They're like, "Okay, I've got all these sessions set up," and it'll be like one person will cancel, and that's the thing. So that was never my experience in Toronto. It was like people showed up on time where they were supposed to be. In LA, I found it was a little bit more loose and casual, I suppose.
Isn't that funny? Is it because is it because like another opportunity might come up or what?
Maybe another opportunity, or just like people are busy and traffic is terrible. I don't know what it is, but that is like one thing. It's common for people to flake in LA, and I don't think it's like an LA thing. Like people in LA are flaky. I haven't quite figured it out, but when I do, I'll let you know. But it is always kind of funny to me when someone comes into town to write and they're like, "Oh, hey, I have this day open after all." I'm like, "Yes, you do, of course." Because like I feel like 4 out of 10 will flake on you.
Wow. That's quite a ratio.
Did you find anything different about how the local writers dealt with you once you said, "I have moved here"? Was there any difference in how much they might accept you as, "Oh, okay, you're serious enough that I'll deal with you now"? Or
I guess so, kind of. I mean, you kind of become local. But no, I didn't really notice too much of a difference. I mean, there were people where I actually, I started writing with them, and then I actually found like, oh, we don't write together that well. And so it's like having to find a new group of people. But again, like having a publisher in place and having that connection was really helpful. But yeah, like I set out here and again, like 26, like, I was kind of a party kid too. And I came down here. It was like an opportunity to live in a really cool city. And so I didn't take it totally seriously at first. I wasn't like, okay, this is why you're here. All these other elements kind of got in the way, and I did kind of get lost, like, honestly. And so I look back and I wish I'd come here with like a clear plan, but it wasn't my story. you
Yeah.
know.
You've struck me in the past as somebody who has a work ethic, but you're not as focused as you could be, and you recognize that about yourself. But I think you've done really well, and you're living a good life, and you get to do what you want, you know. And I see you as a real success story. But I know that feeling of looking back and thinking, oh, I wish I had done that a little differently, or I could have been a little more focused, or whatever. I certainly relate to that. So you would recommend that to your younger self?
Coming with a plan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I absolutely would.
Yeah. What would the plan include, though?
Maybe having the visa stuff in order first, because let me tell you, immigration does not like people who are trying to live here without everything worked out. So there's that, but like, honestly, like, and I look back at a lot of things where I had so many amazing opportunities and I kind of, you know, pissed them away, for lack of a better expression. But yeah, like I definitely wish that I'd come down here with a little bit more focus, a lot more focus.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a clear idea. Yeah. Because even like I started doing some solo stuff down here too. And I had this one manager who was managing Melissa Etheridge, I think. And so my friend set me up and I did a showcase for him. But I got and he was really cool. He also managed Adam Cohen, Leonard Cohen's son. So I got to write a song with him and it was just like, I'm living the dream. This is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the showcase came to play, you know, the songs. And I was so nervous that I got completely blasted. Like I was so drunk. And the next day the manager started kind of ghosting me. And then he finally said, you know, you actually remind me of someone in my life who's an active alcoholic and I can't with you. So that was
wow,
a little heartbreaking.
That may have been the kindest
unfortunately, he
thing.
has passed away.
Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah.
So in my sobriety, I haven't been able to say, hey, and make amends. But yeah,
that's okay though. You know, that was the kindest thing they could have said to you, really. I think at that time, you know, I think it's actually a beautiful thing that they could be candid, because, you know, my experience in LA is that people are not so candid because it makes them uncomfortable. They're striving to get ahead, and they don't really want to deal with that honesty so much, and they don't like dealing, in my opinion, if one may generalize, with what they perceive as weakness, because they feel like it might be catching or something contagious, you know? And so I think that manager actually did you a huge, huge favor by being honest with you like that. And I think that you did them a favor in return by taking it seriously, you know?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's how I feel about it anyway. And obviously I don't know the ins and outs of that situation, but, you know, it seems to me that you recognize that those are the amends that are really important, I think. So, yeah. I didn't mean for all of this to turn into a confessional, but from both of us.
No.
We're songwriters. That's what we do.
Exactly.
Like every
exactly.
song is confessional.
Yeah.
You know? So
yeah, and you're living right down the road from the greatest confessional songwriter, Joni Mitchell, you mentioned.
Yeah, Joni Mitchell. And then I went for a walk the other day and some kids that I ended up randomly talking to, because, you know, it's just, you end up randomly talking to strangers sometimes, especially in pandemic, when you're like, I need people to talk to.
Yeah.
But I was walking by and this kid's like, oh yeah, that's where Carole King, the Tapestries album, was photographed, and that's where she lived. And like, oh my God, there's so much here. Yeah, in Laurel Canyon.
That's amazing.
So yeah, but here, like, you know, I don't know. It's weird because I've read her autobiography too. No, her biography, Reckless Daughter. Have you read that?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Like, that's such an amazing career that she's had.
Yes.
But, you know, and this is something that she shared with Neil Young too. They all had polio at one point. Who else? What's her name? Horses.
Oh, Patti Smith?
Patti Smith also had polio. So I think that's actually the magic sauce right there. I'm like, damn it, why did I get the vaccine? I could have been a legendary songwriter. God,
so the takeaway from this episode is get polio.
Get polio. And also ADD is your friend. Yeah, I definitely have that going on. But yeah, I mean, like, as far as, you know, living here, experiencing LA and experiencing all the different avenues. Like, you know, I kind of set out here to be a rock star. Like I wasn't really focusing on my songwriting. And then I started trying to write for other people, you know, and I'd go into studios and it's like, okay, well, here's who's looking, you know, like Katy Perry's looking for songs, all these. And so like trying to write in her voice, you know, all that stuff. It's like, unless you had like a proper in with the A&R team or with the artists themselves, it's like you'd write the song and then it would just sit there, you know, like nothing would happen to it. And I found that really heartbreaking. Like I'd be like, okay, well, what do I do now? And I started doing my own stuff again, because I realized like, okay, well, you know, it's never going to land in this person's hands. Even with a publishing deal, it's like, they're all the, you know, the inner circles. And so it's just kind of like, I find like, and this is another thing, like I say, like, I wish I'd had more direction and more concentration when I'd moved here, you know, but like, the thing is, honestly, and I can't stress this enough, it's like, I think the greatest ability or a gift that you can have, or something to work on perhaps, is flexibility. Because you can set out on a proper plan. Like I came here and it's like, I'm going to be a rock star. It's like, okay, well, it didn't always look like that. And there's so many elements that came about. Right. And like, if I look at myself now and versus, you know, what I was doing at 16, like it's a completely different story, but it you know, it took quite a road to get to this point. And I think it's okay that it doesn't look the way that I maybe wanted it to.
Right. But, you know, and that was, you know, from a position of naivete and inexperience and so forth. And you know, being flexible, I think saying yes to the universe is an important way to approach life, you know, and you know, you've seen those opportunities and you've gone for it. I think it's great. I think moving at all takes great bravery, and it's something I was never able to do myself, you know, and I honestly, seriously applaud you for that. I think it's great. So
thank you.
I think on that note, we'll wrap this episode up, but Andrea Wasse, you are, as always, so great to talk to you, and your insights on these things are really helpful, and I'm really glad you were able to join us here for Hooks and Ladders.